Hi, welcome back. And I am about to do the mid-year book freakout tag. Although I don't know that anybody actually is tagging anyone. It's all just mid-year. Everyone's going, I want to answer these prompts. And I'm just going to continue that tradition. So, first off, I need to address this redness. I've just come back from doing grocery shopping. It is cold and raining outside, and I've just come into the warm. So this has happened, and I've just poured myself a whiskey to, well, warm me up from having been outside in the cold and rain. However, as I say, welcome back. So let's get into the prompts. Okay, the first one is, what is the best book you've read so far? I've come to the conclusion that the best thing I've read so far this year is Spinning Silver. And I say that because it just worked on so many levels for me. The storytelling worked, the fairy tale quality of it worked, the subversion of the fairy tale worked, the characters were really intriguing and I was invested. The villains were intriguing. It was particularly well put together. I really enjoyed Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. So I'm hoping, planning, anticipating. I intend at some point to read some more from Naomi Novik because I really liked the skill that I saw in Spinning Silver. Okay, the best sequel I read this year, again, was really easy to do this. I basically took everything I'd already read out of the pile up for option, and it left me with very few. Of those, it's easy to call this one my favourite, and this is The Tropic of Serpents by Marie Brennan, and it's the second book in the Memoirs of Lady Trent. Memoirs of Lady Trent was a series I began this year and heartily enjoyed. I read some of them with my eyeballs and some of them were audio. Both of these methods was brilliant, basically, because they're told in a memoir form. It works to have somebody reading it to you. And Kate Reading does an exceptional job of reading this as an older version of the character that you're listening to. And I really, really enjoyed these books. They were very cleverly put together. There's almost a magical realism to them because it feels very Edwardian England. It's not England, but it feels like England. And a lot of the places feel very like similar places on Earth. The Tropic of Serpents feels very much like the Pacific Ocean islands. One of her books takes place in another continent and it feels very like Africa. Another takes place in an area that feels somewhat like the eastern depths of sort of Romania. Yeah, so there are what seems to be some very basic parallels. So it's a bit magical realism. It's a bit, I've actually classed it in my book journal as light fantasy. It's, okay, there are dragons, but in a weird kind of way. I enjoyed it. It was good. It was a great sequel, and obviously I went on to read some more, so you can't really argue with that. Okay, the third one is what is a new release that I haven't yet read from this year? I've been wanting to read The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, so I will get to that at some point. So that's Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Tan. Is that right? Su Tan? I think so. I will check. Either way, I will have plonked it in the corner. Okay, number 4. Anticipated release for the second half of the year that I obviously am looking forward to reading. And this is actually a non-fiction book that I'm looking forward to. And it will come as no surprise to anyone who has visited my channel before. And it's A Life in Footnotes. And it's the biography of Terry Pratchett. And it's written by his long-time assistant, Rob Wilkins. And I'm very much looking forward to this, not least because a lot of it Terry wrote himself. He was writing his autobiography when we lost him, so I am genuinely looking forward to reading that, and I anticipate crying a lot when I read that. But that's okay. This is allowed. The fifth prompt, the biggest disappointment. I didn't actually have to look very hard for this one. I read a book called Hench by, who's that by? That's by Natalie Walcott, one of those. And the premise sounded great, and it kind of fits into a genre I do really like. If you're into watching, if you're a TV watcher, think The Boys with that complete subversion of a superhero trope. Think The Incredibles with insurance companies deciding they're not going to pay out for superhero / supervillain fights. So the premise was great, that somebody injured in a superhero attack basically uses their powers as an administrator, someone who works with spreadsheets, to figure out what these superheroes are actually costing and should they be allowed. That sounded fantastic, and it wasn't. There were moments where I was like, okay, this is going somewhere, I like this, and it wouldn't go there. And you think, okay, it's heading somewhere else. Okay, let's see where this bit goes. Don't really like where that went either. And then the end was really weird and total shift in tone, and I was disappointed because I wanted that to be fun, and it wasn't. So that I was disappointed. Okay, my biggest surprise of 2022. This was very recent and was in my mid-month stuff, and this has been A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. I thought this would be just a sweet little story, and it is a sweet little story, and it's tiny. It's 150, 60, 100 and something pages. It's very much a novella, and I didn't anticipate loving it as much as I love it. Because I love it. It's fabulous. Its sequel is due out reasonably soon. I do want to read that, and it has won me it's won Becky Chambers a lot of leeway in the next few things I read, which I think is probably the most flattering, positive, beneficial thing a new reader can say after reading something. That this buys them a lot of credit. That, yep, you're going to be allowed a fair amount of time to live up to this in anything else that I read. But that's definitely been the case. It was charming, it was sweet, it was insightful, and it made a lot of quite profound assumptions. It made the assumption that as a species, humanity has got to the point where feeling gender fluid, gender neutral is totally ordinary, that's nobody blinks an eye. The idea of looking after the planet that you're living on is totally acceptable. This idea that wellness in yourself is important, and of course tea monks. I'm still totally in love with the idea of tea monks. I don't know that I'll ever fall out of love with that idea, to be fair. Okay, so the next question was, who is my favourite new author in 2022? My favourite new author of 2022 is Marie Brennan, because I read all 5 of the memoirs of Lady Trent this year, and I enjoyed all 5, and I haven't gone out of my way to look to see if there are other books by her, but that's not to say that I'm avoiding them either. I don't read a lot of new things, and I'm certainly not adverse to reading other things by her. So, okay, the next one is the best romance or bookish crush. I originally was going to go with what's my favourite bookish romance, and I do appreciate Angela at the Literary Science Alliance for coming up with that alternate question. But I might actually go with bookish crush because I'm totally in love, like totally in love with Oliver from Boyfriend Material. Boyfriend Material I read last month, earlier this month I think, by Alexis Hall, and I love Oliver. Oliver's a darling. He's smart, he's funny, he's respectful, and when he does get shitty, ooh, he goes off with a bang. So yeah, I like Oliver. So he's my new bookish crush. The newest favourite character. I'm going to fall back on one I've answered a few times now and go with Lady Trent. She's very much the blue stocking. She's the experimenter. She wants to know things. She's curious. She's driven, and she's kind of perfectly okay with turning her nose up at society and going, well, I don't care if you say I shouldn't be doing this because it's not ladylike. I'm going to. And I like that kind of sass in my characters. So, Lady Trent. I'm a fan of Lady Trent. The next question is a book that made you cry. Now, I read a lot of Robin Hobb, and answering anything else here would be a lie. The books that make me cry the most are Robin Hobb, so nothing else even comes close. Sorry. A book that made me happy. Oh, easy peasy. Legends and Lattes. Just everything about Travis Baldry's novel is cheerful. It's about seeing good in people and making not so much good out of bad, but seeing the good that's there and letting it flourish. And it was such a warm story. It was full of heart and full of friendship and full of all those things that are lovely that we don't see a lot of in fantasy today. Fantasy today is the modern fantasy that I'm starting to read some more of. It's far more grim. It's very gritty. It's very realistic. It's very brutal, confronting. It's quite harsh. So this was just a beautifully gentle fantasy story that really brought me back to this is why we tell each other stories, to put value on friendship and to put value on loyalty and to put value in being true to yourself and all of those positive things that we got out of fairy tales when we were kids. It feels like a grown-up version of that. Plus, it takes into account that this isn't a book for grown-ups. This is what happens when your D&D party leaves the town. What happens with the characters they've just moved away from? All those NPC characters in computer games. What do they do? What are their interests? How do they spend their time? And it was just a really lovely little period of time I got to spend with these people in a cafe, of all places. It was lovely, it was cozy, it made me happy, it made me laugh, and I really enjoyed Legends and Lattes. Okay, the most beautiful book that I have either bought or been gifted. This is easy as well. Almost everything I buy is an ebook, so they can be as pretty as they like. They're not actually going to be on display. But I did receive for my birthday the beautiful hardcover of A Touch of Light by Tiago Abdallah. And Tiago's book it's just beautiful. I mean, the art on it is, oh, it is a truly beautiful book. I would pick it up and show it to you, but I didn't actually go and get it off my shelf before filming this, and to go and do that now is going to mean a lot of rearranging of furniture. So, sorry. It is beautiful. Please take my word for it. And I look forward to reading it soon-ish. Yeah. The very last prompt in this list is a book that I really need to read by the end of the year. And I kind of don't have any. I don't do TBRs. So I suppose from there it becomes, what do I want to have read by the end of the year? Don't really have anything there either. There are plenty of, I mean, yes, there are plenty of books I would like to have read, but none of them are any more urgent than any other. It will just simply depend on how I feel and what there is to read at the time. I think that's it. So, do the liking and subscribing thing, because that helps tremendously. And leave me a comment if you think there's something I should particularly put perhaps on a list to fill in the next time I want to read a new thing. Because some of the best books I've read lately have come from booktube recommendations. So please keep making them. I have yet to be disappointed, knock on wood. I'm not asking for a disappointment here at all. I'm liking what I read. Yep, that's a sentence. Okay, with that, I'm going to love you and leave you. I'll see you next time.